Hello, ladies and gents! So, as you might already know, I also got my hands on a test account for the brand new Tier 10 Clan Wars reward tank, the 121B, last week, and now it's finally time to give it a closer look. This video will be mostly about watching a match of mine in it, while discussing the differences to the 121, the regular Tier 10 Chinese medium tank. But before we do that, I just wanted to show you a really quick comparison of the armor profiles of these two vehicles. So, to the left you see the regular 121 in all its glory, while on the right you see the brand new reward tank. The funny thing is that the 121B actually received an armor buff, consisting of an extra 10mm of armor to the front of the hull and a whopping additional 30mm to the side of the turret. But the front of the turret holds a little secret. As you can quite clearly see in the armor viewer, the 121B has a much larger section on the turret front that actually can be penned with about 240 to 260mm already. Now, I'm not saying that that's weak, but I think it's good to keep in mind when you are facing some of those really nasty Tier 10 guns. Oh, and one last side note, the cupolas on top, especially on the left, are still a very inviting target, so keep moving even when behind cover, unless you want to see it getting sniped over and over again. Right, that's probably enough with the boring stuff, so let's jump straight in the gameplay and discuss the rest of the differences in a much more exciting environment. Alright, so here we see the 121B in action, this time around in a standard battle on Pilsen. Now, during the replay I will mostly focus on the differences of the 121B, comparing it to the regular 121 Tier 10 Chinese medium tank, and also how it places really within the very strong lineup of Tier 10 mediums in the game overall. But just a quick word about the gameplay itself as well. This is a really good matchup actually for the machine. Half of the enemy team is Tier 8s, which this thing, well, like any Tier 10, really should be able to rip apart. At the same time though, there are quite a few guns on the enemy team as well that we really have to be careful about. T30, E4, E3, Jagdpanzer E100, Grille 15, all of those things can just murder this machine, so we have to be very careful. Now, this position right here though is quite good for this machine. If we don't sit still for too long while the enemy is aiming on us and they can snipe our cupola, basically we can ricochet a lot of shells from our side of the turret, as we will also demonstrate during the game. But, back to the main mission, how does this thing actually compare to the 121? Well, if you don't know the Chinese Tier 10 medium tank, basically one of its specialty was that it received a 122mm gun instead of the usual 105mm that most of the Tier 10 mediums used, which resulted in relatively low rate of fire, but gave it a rather punchy gun actually, with 440 average damage. The big difference with the 121B is that this time around, this thing received an— whoa! Look at that, Jagdpanzer E100, that was a 170mm shell, bouncing off the side of the turret worth 1000 damage. Not bad. So, 105mm gun on the 121B, but what does that mean for us? Well, for one, it means that finally we are firing APCR. Previously, the 121 with its 122mm was one of the few machines that fired regular AP. And of course, firing APCR means that finally our shells go at a really good speed. We are up to the Tier 10 regular 1478 m/sec shell traverse speed, which will help us tremendously to hit those shells, especially the snapshots. However, we are paying a hefty price for this. Basically, what they did with this gun is they gave it a little bit more penetration, they gave it much better gun handling. We have really good aim time, 2.1 seconds instead of the 2.6 that we had previously. We have better accuracy, 0.32 meters instead of the 0.34 that we had on the 122mm gun. We even have better gun depression, an extra 2 degrees from the god-awful 3 degrees that the 121 has. We are now up to 5 degrees, which is not great, but it's leaps and bounds better. But the price that you have to pay for it is DPM. This, ladies and gents, is now the Tier 10 medium tank with the lowest DPM in the game. That's right, it has lower DPM than the E50M, which is really well known for its low DPM. In fact, even a bad jet, an autoloader, can out-DPM this machine, as it has lower than 2400 DPM. I make a huge mistake here, basically going out sideways in front of 2 very dangerous guns, so yeah, rip me. A lot of times I feel when you're playing with this machine is you will feel like, man, I could have put in so many more shots if I would have been in any other Tier 10 medium. I mean, it's not bad. As you can see, even with my potato plays, I will actually finish top of damage in a Tier 10 match. But at the same time, could have done just a little bit more, sometimes a lot more, with a faster rate of fire. Now, something to note as well is that there are changes to the mobility of this machine, as we notice the 2 escaping light tanks. Let's see if we can snap one of them off. Yay, there we go. So, mobility. We have lower top speed, lowering it from 56 km per hour down to 50. And we have also slightly worse power to weight ratio, now down to 14.6. So this really means that this thing, it won't feel as a fast medium. It can get around the battlefield, as we unfortunately miss our opportunity to put a nice little shell there in the E3. There's really no reason to rush that first shot. So yeah, that's the 121B for you. Much improved gun handling at the cost of a lot of your DPM. Buffed armor profile, but a weaker frontal turret, which is a weird combination. And slightly worse mobility. That's the 121B for you. Then again, I don't think these Clan Wars war tanks are really all about having a super powerful machine. It's more owning something that's really unique on the battlefield and not many players have it. It's excellent for tank collectors, and at the end of the day, as you can see, you can make it work. Consider what somebody with actual skills could have done in this machine. So, this was then my run in the brand new 121B. Not the most skilled gameplay from my part for sure, but with 3000 damage and the same amount of assisted damage, I think it was good enough to showcase the pros and cons of this machine. Be as it may, we actually managed to end on top by damage done, and a very close second by XP earned, which is kinda nice, and also just shows you that low DPM here or there, you still have to count with this thing on the battlefield. As for the final details, we fired 14 shots in total in these about 6 minutes, hitting 11 of them and penetrating 9 with our standard APCR shells. And while we only blocked a single hit out of the 4 received, that was actually from a 170mm gun worth over 1000 damage, so the side of the turret is really something you can rely on. Alright, this was then a very quick look at the 121B, the brand new Tier 10 Clan Wars war tank. Might not be the most dangerous opponent among the very strong line of Tier 10 mediums out there, but you can't underestimate it either. I hope you found this little video useful, or at least entertaining, and if you did, thanks a lot for considering giving this a like or sharing it. Tomorrow we will continue with acing another machine, this time around the crazy bugger that's the Archer on the British Tech Tree, and then over the weekend there is some cool gameplay on the menu by you guys, featuring this time around a rather sweet LTTB and a KV2 replay. Thank you very much for watching everyone, and I look forward to seeing you again in one of the next videos.